This is Why Am I a Mets Fan, a podcast hosted by Samantha Croston and Ashley Wenskoski.
Hi, everybody. Welcome in to another edition of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston, and we have technical difficulties tonight, y'all. We're starting 40 minutes late. There's TV to go on in 2 hours.
The Mets are already an hour into the game, I should add.
Goodness gracious. We don't know the score. A lot's going on tonight. It's a mess, but we're here. We didn't give up on you guys because we had a lot to discuss, so thanks for being here.
Yes, the downward spiral continues. Figuratively, literally, the Mets are in a... things have gone from bad to worse in Mets land since we last spoke with you all. In fact, since the last time we spoke with you all last week, the Mets only have one win. That's not a category that you want to be in. We can discuss their lone win of the week. They've lost 8 of the last 9. They were swept by the Rays and the Braves, of course, and they also lost 2 out of 3 in Philadelphia.
8 out of the last 9. That's nasty work. I want to be honest. These headphones are so bad.
I know.
I'm just gonna take them off.
Too.
I can't do it. So sorry. Really having technical difficulties tonight. Here
Wait,
we go.
Is that what?
Yeah.
All right. No headphones. We're having a local news special tonight, everyone.
Stick with us, baby. We back. Which, by the way, I should note, in Syracuse, it's probably upwards of 100 degrees. And in this studio, it's got to be pushing 80. I mean,
no, I think it's like 85 in
we're
here.
glowing right now.
Having a trying time.
Glowing more than the Mets, that's for sure. So to Ashley's point, swept by the Rays and the Braves, lost 2 out of the 3 in Philadelphia. Truthfully and honestly, one of the most unacceptable stretches that I've seen in quite some time. Maybe even the past few years.
Yeah, you knew the Mets were every good team. You don't go through 162 games without having some trials and tribulations, to put it mildly. But I think to see the Mets fall off a cliff like this has been a little bit much, especially against teams like the Rays and the Braves, for instance. So they get swept by the Braves. All of a sudden, the cracks in the starting rotation are widening. To say that the cracks are becoming glaring, I think would be a little bit of an understatement. The Mets pitching has a 6.35 ERA in the last week.
Yeah, and I think that's where we have to start because it's not the whole problem, but it's some of it. Somebody needs to be held accountable, and this is a part of it, okay? The Mets starting rotation through June 13th, it was a 2.78 ERA. That is the first in Major League Baseball. Since June 14th, 7.07 ERA, 28th in Major League Baseball. Can we just, I might just be hot. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but I have to just say, like that stat right there is why following a team like the Mets is so torturous sometimes. Yeah. Because it never is, well, this was just a consistent team throughout the whole year. It was like this was the highest high of my entire life, followed by the lowest low. How could it be that drastic? First to 28th?
First to second worst. Like, that is a disparity. Now, I know some things have happened, right? Tyler McGill went on the IL last week right after we had a crash out and talked about him. By the way, Tyler, not really fooling me with that IL stint. Okay, it was after a really rough patch. That's all I have to say about that. Not getting into that. Kodai Senga's on the IL right now, and Paul Blackburn has a turn through the rotation once every 5 days, which really just is not a good thing if you're the New York Mets. Now, Frankie Montas is coming back this week, which I'll hold judgment on that until after Tuesday when he's slated to start, but he comes back from the dead. And Sean Manaea is at Syracuse, so he's close. So you're getting Montas and Manaea back. Senga today, Kodai Senga spoke through an interpreter today, Monday, before the Mets game and said that he doesn't anticipate being out for long. He's almost already ready to start throwing again, so that's a good sign if you're the Mets. Mm-hmm. If I'm looking at the Mets rotation, I need Paul Blackburn to not be a once every 5 days type of guy.
I prefer him to be more of a visitor as opposed to a mainstay.
A spot start.
Sure.
Long relief.
Problem. You know what I mean? Hold a fill. He's your guy.
Sure.
Once every 5 days.
Hands Paul the ball once every 5 days.
Don't hand Paul the ball.
Also, then to add to all of that, the starting pitching woes, well, then you get to David Peterson on, what was it, Sunday in Philadelphia, Friday in Philadelphia, one of the two, and you're like, okay, thank God, I think it was Sunday. Peterson's at least starting today, this is great. And David Peterson chose the absolute wrong day, wrong week, wrong time of the month to have his worst start of the season.
You just can't have your best kid acting up.
No.
I mean, it's really become a storm.
Peterson failed us.
I mean... Like David Peterson was like one of the few bright spots that we really had to work with here. I think maybe there needs to be some sort of religious or spiritual component that they bring into the mix right now. I don't know what needs to happen.
A team meeting.
A team meeting.
Perhaps.
I mean, just at the very least.
High time.
But honest to God, like genuinely not joking, I feel like sometimes in the past they have been in these slumps and Francisco Lindor has gone in and said a couple of encouraging and inspiring words and things have turned around. I actually think this is a time where you do maybe need to rely on your leaders. Maybe we need to see something from Mendoza. And you know what? We will get into this, but honestly, credit to Mendoza because I think what fans mostly wanted to see was just some change.
Yeah.
Want to see some switches. Want to see a little mix up.
Oh, we got a little mix.
And let me tell you what, when Mendoza hears that, he starts baking it up. I mean, he starts stirring the pot 100%. So I appreciated that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
The pitching's a mess, so that obviously needs to turn around, and we'll get into the probables at the end of the show for later this week, but we have Blackburn on tap tonight. Scared to look at the score. It's 8:30, and we have Montas on tap tomorrow, so we'll see what ends up happening. But it wasn't all the pitching.
No.
They literally scored 3 runs in the 2 losses in Philadelphia. Obviously, they scored 11 runs the night before that, but 3 runs across those 2 games, you're not going to win either of those games.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What makes you feel more nervous right now? The pitching or the hitting?
Honestly, to me, the hitting is a concern, especially with runners in scoring position. I think you look at any team that sort of relies on the same 3 to 4 guys, and that's concerning, right? The Mets have really 4 guys, sometimes 5 in that lineup. McNeil's been productive lately, but you have Alonso, Soto, Lindor, Nimmo, kinda, Starling Marte, if he's feeling good, that you consistently can rely on. The other 3-4 spots in that lineup on a consistent nightly basis are giving you zilcho. Not even like there are competitive contender teams that I feel like every team has their stars, right? But you are getting 2 to 3 to 4 consistent dead spots in that lineup per night. That's gonna be my thumbnail, zilcho. So that does concern me because I think just from a depth perspective, right? You're looking for a guy like Vientos to come back, a guy like Beatty to be more productive. The whole works. Jesse Winker, the whole 9 yards when he comes back from injury. But I think long term, the pitching is more of a concern to me, and I've said that before, right? You really need a guy like Senga, obviously, to come back. You need Montas and Minaya to come back healthy and ready, because if you don't, and Clay Holmes and Griffin Cannings have inning limits and depth problems and other things that we've talked about on earlier episodes that God knows how deep they're going to be able to go into the season. Well, I mean, we're down to David Peterson here in terms of who I'm just eliminating.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think long term, you're right to say that. Here's the other interesting thing just about this entire conundrum, this little conundrum we have going on. The lone win of the week was an 11-4 win over the Phillies on Saturday. Again, it's like right now I just feel like the Mets are, it's like the smartest kid you have, but they're not performing to their potential. It's the smartest kid you have, but they're getting a 75 on the test. Like, that they're capable of more. An 11-4 win. And in that, I mean, it looked pretty good out there. Nimmo and Soto both with 2 home runs. Lindor, Nimmo, Soto went back to back to back in the 3rd inning. Mind you, honestly, there was still a couple of players who really did not contribute much of anything. But
as there tends to be.
But there was enough here. Like, you saw the kind of production. Even, honestly, Juan Soto, some great at-bats. Like, I love that look he gets in his eyes when you know he's about to hit a home run.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I got to be honest. I've been watching some of his at-bats start to finish recently, and he truly, like, you can tell when he knows he has an edge on the pitcher.
Yeah.
And more often than not, that's like a double or a home run. It's really amazing to watch, but it's not happening consistently.
Well, there's a lot of people to blame the recent slide on, and it's actually not Juan. We've been quite harsh on Juan Soto on this podcast in recent months, recent weeks, recent episodes. But you can really blame anyone you want here besides Juan Soto. He's kind of turning it around. Is he turning it around to the tune of $765 million? Probably not, but a good step is a good step. Soto, over his last 21 games, has 21 walks, 20 runs, 16 RBI, 4 doubles, 8 home runs. He's slashing .347, 500, .736. Soto showing good signs. SNY was asking him, do you feel like you've turned a corner? Do you feel like, is this the best you felt all year? And he kind of gave the general media-trained answer that, he's felt good all year. He's just having better luck. Some of the balls are dropping, whatever, the whole 9 yards. But I'm not ready to pin the last week or so on Juan. I think more so it's what I said before. You're relying consistently on the same 4 players every single night to come through for you in the order. That's not a recipe for success long-term. You need guys in there that are at least going to have I mean, quality at bats, right? They have those 7 solo home runs on Saturday in Philadelphia. The other 2 were Jared Young and Francisco Alvarez, who's no longer with us. We'll have more on him in a moment. But 1 through 9 in that lineup, you're not even feeling like, forget about stardom, forget about runners in scoring position, forget about clutch. We're not even having quality at bats.
I mean, even just the fact that it was all solo home runs, like I'm so confused by all of this. I really am.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to process, quite honestly, because again, the funny thing about it is the Mets, from a record standpoint, are still one of the best teams in baseball.
Yeah.
But it just has that feeling like at some point, when are you truthfully concerned? The first couple games they lost, this happens. Then they lose a couple more. Well, it's a long season. 162 games. This happens to every team. And people get to that point, I think, on Mets Twitter where they start to bring about slides from really good, really successful and positive Mets years and teams. But at some point, it's like there are starting to feel like the problems here are deep-rooted. It's starting to feel like there are genuinely big issues here that may not be issues that can be fixed immediately. For example, when you look at the pitching, I understand that some of these pitchers feel like they're going to be back soon, but what about tonight? What about the game tomorrow and the next day? Because if you only have a couple of guys in the lineup who produce, then you're essentially hoping that those guys are going to get you a victory every single night, because it's not going to be the guys who are hitting, let's say, 5 through 9, and it's not going to be the pitching.
Yeah.
How many of those games can you really win when it's a close game?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it right now, right? It's been a week, a little over a week and a half of dark days, right? When you get into maybe 2 weeks of that, 2.5 weeks, then that seems like a trend is becoming more of a pattern, and that's concerning. What I will say is that this is not an excuse, because I don't like to make excuses on this podcast. But I was thinking about this today as I was going through putting the show notes together. The Mets have been bitten by the injury bug, honestly, quite a bit for the month to be June, right? You're looking at Montas and Minaya. Okay, they're on their way back. McGill's on the IL. No further comment on that. You've seen some relievers go down. Kranick has gone down. You've seen, Jesse Winker, Jose Siri. The injuries have sort of started to pile up.
I'd also like to look at that a little bit. I'm not necessarily placing blame on anyone, but this feels like something that the Mets struggle from quite a bit. I honestly almost am wondering, could there be something with the strength and conditioning that's different? What's going on here? Why so many of these guys are so injury prone? I don't like it. And in June, it's not helpful. All that to be said there, the Mets fall out of first place.
Yes.
The Phillies are 47-31. The Mets are 46-32. They are 1 game back in the division again. I get it. Well, remember last year? I know. I see the situation. But still, it's just for them to have performed so hot, you just don't want to see them be so cold immediately after. That's all.
I think if you're a Mets fan right now, I hate when Mets Twitter and everybody, right? Losing 8 of your last 9, that's not a good thing. Every team goes through it. The Phillies, before this last series, they had a streak where they lost where they won 1 of their last 10. It happens. The Mets luckily built a big enough pad in the standings and record-wise the beginning of the season that they're able to survive it and still be in a good spot, and it's June. So get back to me after the All-Star break, but now they can't dig themselves into a hole, and that's what's important to remember is they got to get out of this funk. So the good news regarding the Phillies, if I'm going to bring anyone, I'm feeling a little optimistic today, and I'm not sure why.
Not sure what's going on.
The good news regarding the Phillies is that the Phillies' schedule is kind of a ripper in the 18 games between now and the All-Star break, including tonight. So it would, if you're the Mets, benefit you to snap out of it now, while you probably are going to get some help from some other teams who are playing the Phillies. So the Phillies from today through the All-Star break, which begins July 13th, have 3 at the Astros, 3 at the Braves. They play San Diego twice, Houston, or I already said Houston, Cincinnati, and San Francisco. Those are some good teams. Obviously, Atlanta's in there, a division rival. Obviously, the Braves aren't great this year, but they certainly made the Mets look pretty good.
Isn't that classic?
Classic for the Braves.
I
think we called that last week.
You know what? The Braves are the team I hate the most. They just are. I really can't get away from that.
They're snaky. They're like the snake in the weeds. They're going to come out and bite you, even if they are 11 games back in the division.
Thorn in the side, man.
I know.
Anyway,
so hopefully the race between the Phillies and Mets. Listen, if you go into the All-Star break and you're the Mets and it looks like it does right now or close to it in the next 2.5 weeks and you're right there with the Phillies, 1 game, somebody's got an edge on each other, I'm not concerned. You just got to stay in the race, you know?
Why are you so positive today?
I don't know.
It's freaking me out. I want to feel the way you feel. I can't get there, and maybe you can talk me off this cliff, but in my mind, it just doesn't feel like it's just going to be a 10-game stretch. Like
I'm
in my
surprisingly
mind,
calm. I don't know why.
I know. I guess you see something that I don't see, because in my mind, I'm feeling like it's not just 2 or 3 games. Like all of a sudden, it really feels like they're falling into a hole here. And it's just been deflating more than anything. I feel defeated by what I've seen, because it's not even like close losses, and if 1 or 2 things went the other way, if they were just a little bit luckier, things would have been differently. These are like blowouts, like
I know.
embarrassing blowouts.
Well, honestly, this is where I'm about to take a negative turn, is somebody that I am quite ready to be quite harsh on. Francisco Alvarez is, he had a one-way ticket to Syracuse on Sunday. The Mets optioned him back down to AAA Syracuse, and honestly, if there was one person that was getting under my skin, right under there, ready to piss me off night in and night out, it was Alvarez. And listen, this podcast was a fan. We have a bobblehead. It's somewhere. I don't know.
It's
It's
right
behind
there.
me.
It's right
There
there.
it
It's
is.
behind you.
Right behind me. I don't know if you can see it. Noted fan of Francisco Alvarez, kind of on his journey on the way up. Last year, 2022, 2023, the whole works. Francisco Alvarez had been doing something negative to me lately watching the Mets, okay? The little defensive, first of all, I think the Mets reached their breaking point with him in the Braves series when they watched him essentially lose the game with that walk-off situation. He throws to second base. He's had like 18 pass balls. He's not even getting, a slider in the dirt. Francisco Alvarez is not blocking it, nor is he making an attempt to.
No.
And it's the attempt that really makes me upset. I am going to need you to, first of all, he's not even highly touted for his defense. He never has been, right? The whole thing was he came up, a power hitting catcher, the whole 9 yards. Okay. You want to give me average defense night in and night out and call a good game with the pitchers? I can live with that. You want to not try to block balls in the dirt and just have these lazy little pass balls all the time? It's really on my last nerve.
Not to mention, quite honestly, he's not that athletic. He's really slow.
Doesn't move well.
All of
Doesn't
that,
throw out runners well.
Right. At some point, there were too many things here. And by the way, this is not me sitting here saying his future with the Mets is over. If you look at some clips of Alvarez from the past few years when he's really feeling himself, I think the reason why we liked him so much on this podcast was honestly almost like an aura thing.
He lost his swagger.
He had ribs. He would be hitting home runs and you see him just pointing down at the ground, like the bat. Like that's the kind of Mets
so
energy.
smiley. Like he's so smiley, so expressive.
And so calm in the high pressure situations, right? I almost like envisioned him as the therapist. He did really well with a struggling Diaz.
Yeah.
He did well with a lot of the pitchers. I'm not seeing that command, maybe is the right word anymore. Yeah. It seems like he's lost command even over his own game. And I think when that happens, it's hard for you to tell other people what to do, right? But as a catcher, you have to be a leader. And to your point, if he is not hitting, or he's hitting some home runs, but he's really not doing much else besides that, his other at-bats stink. And Terrence, when he was out, was doing a relatively good job.
Yeah.
Maybe even great. We're going to at some point need to make a switch. Like, this is professional baseball. This is not, there's no loyalty here is my point.
Yeah.
And especially with Mendoza and the leadership here, there is not loyalty over a player who came up through the ranks. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I actually appreciate that. Change only happens if change happens, right?
Honestly, yeah. You have to ask yourself, I saw someone say this on Mets Twitter, and it's true. What exactly was Francisco Alvarez doing well at the major league level right now? Because to me, zilcho.
That
term of the day.
It's the zero plus the zilch, just the marriage. It's the marriage of those two words.
We were not doing anything well at the big league level, right? And I think to your point about Mendoza, first of all, I'm shocked that the Mets did this. I thought this was a Mets Twitter, Mets rumor mill. The fans are unhappy. But he's been the starting catcher for like 3-4 years now. Yep. I know he's 23. He came up really young. He was the #1 prospect in baseball. It was the whole works. He did really, we saw the power. We saw the swagger. We saw all of it when he came up in 22, 23. We haven't seen that this year, really, or portions of last year. So when you get into this season, to your point, it's like, I think it's a good signal from, not that it's Mendoza's decision, it's a front office's decision, but to kind of send a signal that, hey, no one's safe. Just because you're Francisco Alvarez and you've been the starting catcher for the last 2-3 years, that doesn't just guarantee that you can suck it up out here every night and we're going to live with that.
And honestly, in a way, it's a risk. But I think that when you do things like this, you see what players are really made of, right? We see this a lot. I even think, honestly, covering Fran Brown, who's the Syracuse football coach here, no one is ever safe. There's no position where you can feel comfortable at any time. And that's a good thing, because now, right, I was really genuinely thinking about this. Alvarez coming back to Syracuse, packing your damn
It's been a while.
bags.
He just had a
You're
kid.
gonna live in some apartment that is like not
Just had
your
a child
home.
in New York.
Awful. I mean, honestly, terrible. Like really, that's a hard, rough message.
Yeah.
To have to. And I know we always talk about it like that. We love being in Syracuse, but I'm just saying, damn, to like be back and forth, like that's really tough.
Yeah.
And I think that when the way that he responds in this situation will show you a lot about what is going to happen to him in the future.
I agree.
If he comes back from this and it really feels like he's learned a lesson and it's added fuel to his fire, now all of a sudden it's going to be that same feeling of love that always used to be there.
I
But
agree.
end of the day, you're getting paid to do a job. And if you're not doing it, there is going to be a demotion at least for a period of time. That's what happened. It's really as simple as that.
And I think if you're the front office and you start to see some of those, I guess, smaller things, but those are the big things that we're talking about, right? The mental mistakes, throwing to second base when you should have thrown to third, the bad body language, kind of the sulking when you strike out, all of that. If you're David Stearns and Steve Cohen in the Mets front office looking at that, yeah, that signals to me you need a little trip, a little even mental reset.
Yes.
Up in Syracuse.
And that's the thing. I'm not so convinced that they went to him and necessarily phrased this as a punishment, although to some Syracuse may feel that way. I honestly think that it could have been to some. I think it could have been to Vientos. I think
To Mark.
we'll talk about that. But honestly, I think it really could even just be as simple as, hey, we love you and we support you.
Yeah.
You're just not playing up to your potential right now.
You ain't
Maybe
cutting
that's
it.
just okay.
Ain't cutting it, pal. He had, I'm not really interested in talking about his stats this year because they're pitiful, but I think what really does stand out to me is that he had 6 extra base hits this season. So, but like we said, he's 23, right? That's really important to remember. He's still so young. I saw
God.
Steve Gelb say that. He had like a really insightful tweet when this came out to say like, look, development isn't linear. For some guys, it is. For some guys, even after that second, third season in the big leagues, you need a little reset. So maybe that's what this is for Alvarez. I obviously think that getting a chance to play every day again will be good because where you also started to see things hit problems here was that the Mets just couldn't hide that Luis Torrens was the better option, maybe 4 or 5 days a week. Torrens has been in a slump at the plate, which is unfortunate because when he's hitting well, that's really a lethal combo. But he's obviously shown the potential at the plate. He has that kind of more veteran presence to, I guess, deal with those trials and tribulations of the slumping. And defensively, you can't ignore it. We've said it for a long time. Defensively, Torrens is far and away better than Alvarez, and it's not particularly close. 2 stats that were on Baseball Savant today that really caught my eye. Torrens is first in base stealers caught above average in the big leagues, and he's 6th in pop time. You ain't running on Luis Torrens.
I'll tell you something right now. If I was Luis Torrens, I am doing everything in my power while Alvarez is going through his punishment/mental health break to hit as well as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you what, right now, this is Torrens' position to gain or to lose.
That's true.
He truthfully is the better option in a lot of ways. If he is able to hit even for average or even, I mean, honestly, just hit really at all, he honestly could end up with the job. And that would be unfortunate to see for Alvarez, but that's also just the way life works. I, honest to God, think he has a chance here to really secure or lock something down if he hits a little bit better.
I think the Mets still view Alvarez as their, I guess, catcher of the future, but they're certainly going to need to see some things from him. And I agree with you that if you're Luis, now is your time to shine because you have a lot of things to offer that Alvarez either can't or simply hasn't wanted to. And that's where I hit a wall with some of the laziness and effort stuff with Alvarez.
Hey, by the way, honestly, quick little shout out to Hayden Sanger, who is going to get another opportunity here. You have to feel a little bit happy for some of these guys
You do.
who don't normally get the opportunity, and now they get it. Again, do I really, is Hayden Sanger going to do enough amazing things to really make an impact? Probably not, but who knows? Honestly, sometimes I almost feel like in a slump, you just need, I don't know, some random other pieces who you maybe didn't have before. And I think Sanger is the kind of guy who has an amazing attitude, to tell you the truth.
I agree. Sanger and Torrens, honestly, both to me from a logistical standpoint are a hole in the lineup right now. But I think if you're the Mets, you make that sacrifice because Alvarez's progression and I guess reset is more worth it to you in the long run.
Also, I mean this sincerely. This is like, I genuinely don't mean this as a joke, even though it could come across that way. Like the fact that Hayden Sanger's journey started at Whole Foods, that's the kind of person who you are not going to see laziness being exhibited by.
No.
Like that's a guy who at every chance and at every opportunity is thinking about where did I come from and where do I not want to be again.
Hayden Sanger simply was not the #1 prospect in baseball. I'll tell you that.
Correct. All right, there's some other things we just wanted to do here before we wrap up. Some other shakeups here. LuisAngel Acuna, down. Jankowski, up. Vientos, needs a bit more time.
Yeah, another big shakeup. The Mets send down LuisAngel Acuna, who had pretty much been up in the big leagues since the beginning of the season. He was optioned to Syracuse this morning, Monday morning. You can like it, you can not like it. It makes sense from a logistical perspective. Handshake. Jeff McNeil has been really quite productive at the plate lately, and that's kind of squeezed out Acuna. You've really only seen him in that pinch running, defensive late inning replacement situation. Sure, that's what he brings to your team. That's what's valuable. We've sat here and we've said that, but he also needs to play. He's 23, same as Alvarez. He needs to play close to every day, or you can't expect to see development there. I'm a little confused on how Jared Young remains on the roster. He just remains. He just keeps kicking, especially when, I should add, they call up Travis Jankowski, who is also an outfielder. But that's another topic that I'm not
I mean,
interested
that
in
is
at this
curious. We don't have enough time to get into that because of the technical difficulties, but at some point we really should.
Yeah, and to me, when Mark Vientos comes back, which should be within the week, I think Jared Young's your answer. Honestly, I know everybody's saying Ronnie Mauricio is going to get sent down. I say Mauricio stay up. I need to see a little more from him. Jared Young can come back down. So Vientos, Mark, me and him, we had a lovely
tell us about that.
90-second interaction last week. We're all ready to interview him. It's so exciting. Mets third baseman, rehabbing in Syracuse. We're going to put it on the news, the 11 o'clock.
She was there for really the whole game.
I was there for like 4 hours to get about 30 seconds from Mark. To say that I was underwhelmed, that things were under-delivered would probably be an understatement. He gave us an injury update, which I put out for you all. Hope you all enjoyed that because, there's really nobody else asking these guys these questions down here in Syracuse. So sometimes exclusive. CNY Central exclusive. Sometimes when you can get it from them first, that is noteworthy. But unfortunately, he was not looking to mess around. He began the interview by asking me if they were going to be hard questions. I said, Mark, depends on how you define hard. Okay.
No, listen, anyway. We're honestly not 100% blaming him. We wish the answers were better, but we also understand
he's a nice guy.
Upset. He's a nice guy. Like, honestly, friend of the podcast.
Yeah.
But we understand and recognize that in Syracuse, he was potentially no one comes down to Syracuse and feels so excited to see us. It's really nothing to do with us.
Especially when it's only us. Picture my face, a 30-pound camera that's bigger than my head, and a microphone.
Right.
Nobody's thrilled.
Right. You're in Syracuse. Picture this.
There's no
Ashley
AC.
Wenskoski shows up.
We're in a conference room, and it's kind of dark.
Correct.
Anyway.
And those are the situations. But that was the situation. We're going to see what happens there.
He'll be back within the week, we hope.
Yes. I have to say, just to wrap that note up, I do agree. I think the Acuna thing makes sense. We have long stated on this podcast, and at least I'll just speak for me, still feel that when you talk about the culture and the chemistry, I honestly think Jeff McNeil is dead weight. Something about his personality, I just don't really trust that guy. Like, there's something that I don't 100% like.
Jeff McNeil's not a friend of the program.
He's just not. Like, the energy compared to just a Nimmo, Alonso, your classic Mets bread and butter, Lindor, I'm not seeing it there. He just seems kind of grumpy. That's all there is to really say. Everyone's always like, happy Jeff. Like, it's genuinely a big event when he smiles. Why is that?
Yeah,
just
anybody
smile,
like
bro.
that in your life, that's not your
be
favorite
happy.
person.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we did see it firsthand. So we do get to say that because we saw it.
Agree. That being said, whatever. You never know what people are going through, but the moral of the story is he is producing, and you just can't deny that. Like, he honestly has done a good job.
I agree. Squeezed out Acuna is what it did.
Yep.
I mean, we saw this problem coming from a mile away. Beatty, Acuna, the whole 9 yards. We've talked about it. Somebody had to go. So now Acuna gets to play every day in the good old 3-1-5. Anyway, Dickie Lovelady.
Dickie Lovelady. Let's just wrap it up with that. The Mets signed Dickie Lovelady today. This could be one of those grimace OMG things. We're not sure, but we feel like out of anything we've seen this year, it has the most potential to be that.
Could be the moment.
Especially considering the fact that his name is Richard, but he genuinely asked, he preferred and wanted to be referred to as Dickie. That just feels like an important part of today's podcast, doesn't it?
It does, and I'm excited for Gary, Heath, and Ron to get their hands on it. I'm sure they already have tonight. If Jeff Passan is tweeting that he's excited for Gary Cohen to talk about Dickie Lovelady, you know it's big news, okay?
Keith is going to say some questionable things tonight. And that's
Keith
just all
is
there
going
is
to catch an HR violation from a mile away. They are gonna see it coming. Somebody from SNY tonight was like, Keith, listen.
Keith, we know what you may be prepared to do, and Ron just having a fit of laughter, and classic Gary, he's going to say one thing and he's going to allude to it.
Yeah.
And then Keith's going to make the
joke. And Ron
joke.
knows what he's doing.
There's going to be some dead air after that. And then Gary's going to get things back on track. And that's pretty much what's going to happen.
Yes. Good old Dickie, the 29-year-old, he's a lefty. That's why that's what he wants to be referred to. I'm just going by what he says.
No one said the good old besides you.
Okay.
Okay.
He has a 5.26 ERA across his career. He's pitched for the Royals, the A's, the Cubs, the Rays, the Blue Jays. I mean, honestly, they brought him in because he's a lefty. That's really not a secret or a surprise to anybody. But in 19 relief appearances this season for the Twins AAA affiliate, he has a 1.31 ERA.
Yeah.
So
when it comes to this guy, you could say that he has a 5.26 ERA across 110 MLB appearances. You could say he has a 1.31 ERA in 19 relief appearances at the AAA level, or you could say that in 2024 he posted a 3.77 ERA in 28 games with the Rays.
you could also say his name's Dickie Lovelady.
You could say that, and all four of those things would be remarkably true. I don't know exactly what's going to happen here, but I wouldn't necessarily rule him out based on the 5.26 ERA across the 110 MLB appearances. I just wouldn't. You just don't know. I just feel like out of all the things I've seen, Dickie could be a spark plug. Could be
this year's grimace. Important pertinent score update. It's 3-2 Braves in the top of the 7th. So do that with that information what you will. So yeah, tonight
I didn't hear that.
What?
I said I'm gonna act like I didn't hear that.
Okay. We have to go. Anyway, tonight it was Blackburn. You all know that. Tomorrow, the recipe, which we said before we got on the podcast tonight, the recipe just so like to stop your slide. Like right now, the Mets are a train without brakes hurtling down a cliff. Okay, there's no brakes. We lost the brakes. What you need to stop that is not Frankie Montas coming back from the dead to face not only just Frankie Montas, forget about him, Spencer Strider will be on the other side of the mound in tomorrow night's Tuesday's game. So to say that doesn't thrill me, Frankie Montas gave up. Frankie Montas may have had the worst 30-day rehab stint in the Mets organization in like the history of baseball.
It was really?
It was 7 earned runs, 8 earned runs. I mean, it was the bad news bears.
I mean, he had like the Syracuse Mets ballpark crowd like booing him out of there. Like literally, it was genuinely upsetting.
Very bad.
Crazy. But we'll see what happens. We always say AAA Syracuse or AAA level in general, Wild West of baseball.
Yeah.
So hoping for better days ahead. What are you looking for against the Braves now with these upcoming games?
Well,
what do you think is the most
we're
important
already
thing?
losing tonight. There's about 3 more innings for them to turn it around. So with that in mind, and Frankie Montas on tap tomorrow, things aren't looking. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I'll take a split against the Braves with where the Mets are
4
now.
games
I
for
just
this?
need to, they play
4.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Very good.
I just need to see small signs, small glimmers of hope and improvement. And with Canning and Peterson pitching Wednesday and Thursday, the Braves have some guy with like a 7 ERA pitching on Wednesday. That seems promising to me. So, and you know what? If all else fails, the Pirates come to town this weekend. And that is, non-sarcastically, actually what the doctor ordered.
Yes. If there is any time to stop the slide,
To see
y'all,
the Pittsburgh Pirates.
if it ain't against Pittsburgh, who is it against? Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Be sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. We will see you back here when the next big thing happens, and be on the lookout for another episode dropping later this week. Thanks. Peace.